Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the India InsurTech podcast. My name is Prashant, and we have with us Srinidhi from Aegon Life.
Hey Prashant, very happy to be here.
I wanted to begin by if you could take us through what you do at Aegon and what's your role and what are your mandates.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at Aegon Life. And I come from analytics background in the last two companies, and I've specifically brought in to lead the digital shift. So as you know, right now, today we are India's first and only 100% digital life insurance company. And I was brought in to lead this change. So all these, all the functions, including sales and of course analytics and marketing and product innovation and all the related functions that support them, report under me.
Oh, lovely, lovely. This is a great segue into our first question that we have for you. During the pandemic, we've seen insurers, life insurers in particular, take a backseat when it comes to picking up retail and group risks. I'd love to understand, your insights on how the market's changing and how Aegon is, reacted to these, to these markets changing.
Absolutely. I think pre and post pandemic, I think there is like a veritable shift. As the saying goes, they say there are weeks where decades happen, right? They say this
Correct.
the COVID weeks were one of those where we see a very significant shift in consumer expectations as well as consumer behavior. Pre and post pandemic. One of course is that there is a lot more increased awareness as well as urgency as far as insurance is concerned. Of course, it's more so for like health insurance than life insurance, but still even life insurance is very positively impacted from that perspective. Now, everybody, so the lot of things have moved, from the companies trying to push insurance to consumers coming back and asking what is the right insurance for me, right? So it's a big shift, right? And that's one. And second thing that's happening is that while all the lockdowns happened and the companies were going through the digital shift in order to cater to the consumer, etc., a similar digital transformation was also happening on the consumer side. Right? So very large India out there, for example, my father, right, who would use his phone only for just calling somebody and nothing else, before the pandemic. During those weeks, he became very familiar on the one side with, Googling and figuring things out to using a Zomato or a Swiggy to Amazon to whatnot for his purposes, etc. So very large India, whose phone usage was very restricted to just some very basic things, became very familiar and comfortable doing financial transactions online, right? So the Jam Trinity and that's what we call as the emerging India really emerged, into the digital world, right? And that's a significant shift. And and because of that, what happened was that the product expectations, the distribution expectation, and the underwriting and marketing expectation, everything changed because there is a new India which is very familiar doing financial transactions digitally. Now this has had a lot of impact, obviously, on the one side for the consumer. This is a lot of democratization as far as financial products in general, and insurance in particular is concerned, right? Which is a good thing for the consumer. But on the other side, if you look at the companies, it is basically commoditization, right? So if all the products across the industry is available for consumer at the click of a button, right? How would he or she compare all of them, right? It's basically the metrics that's very easy for him or her to compare, which is basically price, right? So it becomes commoditization. So how companies have to fight commoditization through innovation, that became the game changer, that became the competitive advantage, right? And obviously from Aegon perspective, we took innovation as the way to beat this commoditization. And so our innovation was focused basically on threefold, right? One was product innovation itself, and the second one is how do we innovate on the distribution side of things so that we can reach consumers on the platforms that they trust and frequently come into. And on the third side, from the underwriting perspective, because now we are talking about an emerging India, which is like drastically different from the so-called elite India, which we were catering to in the past, right? So putting all these things together, our innovation was, I would say, three-pronged approach. And I'll go into the
Understood.
details in a few minutes.
All right. Yeah. So yeah, you bring up three interesting points while you talk about your change. Number one is how products have changed. Number two is how distribution has changed, and number three is how underwriting has changed. I'd love to touch upon all these three of them. Are you currently distributing the same products that you were pre-pandemic? Any interesting new products, and how are you leveraging tech to distribute to sort of build on these products?
Absolutely. Actually, a great question. Let's take a few steps back to give you a perspective about why we are doing what we are doing. before I get into the products itself, right? So I would like to generally look at India as a triangle, if you will. On the top of the triangle are all these so-called elite Indians, who have access to all the good things in life, and and also who have a lot of choices, if you will, right? And then on the bottom of the folks who are trying to make the ends meet. That's the group that we are all trying to bring up, right, as a country and as an economy. In the middle of these two extremes is what we call as the emerging India, which we all fondly call as Bharat, right?
Right.
The dream of a billion people, if you will, right? Now, this group is what has come out of poverty in the last 1 or 2 decades and has very swiftly moved into the digital and the mobile world during the pandemic, right? And are very benefiting by what we call as the jam trinity, Chandan, Aadhaar, and mobile trinity, if you will, right? Now, if you look at the top group, there is although it's not like 100% penetration or anything from insurance perspective, but still some way, shape, or form it's saturated, which basically means that as far as insurance is concerned, the incremental cost of selling every new policy, right, it's a lot more than what it used to be before, right? So that's that from that perspective, it's kind of saturated, right? So the real growth in the next 5 to 10 years is really going to come from the Bharat, the emerging India, which is the middle of this triangle, if you will. Now, if you look at, okay, how do we create products and market to these emerging India folks, right? So if you look at the salient features of these folks, it is drastically different from the so-called elite India that we used to cater to all these days. Right? So first of all, these guys are probably buying insurance for the first time. Right? And secondly, given their profile in the past, their earning profile, and so on and so forth, right, and also how they manage their finances in a typical mindset, probably they are going to be customers of more of a low ticket size, high volume kind of a paradigm, rather than the other way that we saw in the other customer segments, right? And also what we are seeing typically based on our empirical studies is that these people don't want very long-term commitments, if you will, right, shorter commitments. And also, they would want reason to spend every bit, which basically means that unless they understand a product, they are not going to purchase it, right? So a very complex product that insurance world is used to, it's not going to work there, right? So a very different way of creating products, distributing it, and marketing it. So,
Wow.
from that perspective, what we are doing in Aegon is, can we come up with bite-sized products, right? When I say bite-sized, it doesn't necessarily mean only smaller ticket size items, which of course means smaller ticket size, but there is more to it. One is shorter commitments. Second one is, can we just cover specific obligations of the individual rather than covering the entire life, putting say 2 crores of insurance, asking him to pay 50,000 of premium, whatever, right? Can we just cover one obligation? It could be a school fee, for example. It could be a house rent, or whatever those obligations are that the person might be, or of course, a home loan, etc., right? So can we create life insurance for specific obligations so that it is low ticket size, and also of a specific shorter period as compared to 75 years, 80 years, and sometimes even a 100-year life insurance covers, right? So getting into bite size. And secondly, propositions that are custom made for these folks, right? Again, this was one of the outcomes of the digitization, if you will, right? So I will again take the example of my father, right, who has just come into the digital world, as an effect of the side effect of the pandemic, I would say, right? So while for us, insurance, or for example, any BFSI is a complex product requiring so many things to be put in by the customer in terms of the data inputs and going through the full journey, etc., right? But on the same phone, the same person is doing transactions on Swiggy, on Zomato, on Uber, on Ola, and Amazon, and Flipkart, and whatnot, right? So the expectation of the consumer is that kind of a customer experience, right? So we can't say that, okay, we are different because we are BFSI, and then make him or her go through the full thing that we are making them go through, right? So from that perspective, can we have interesting contextual propositions that are easy for them to decide, and very, very easy to purchase, so that we can give Swiggy, Zomato kind of an experience for them, while this is a complex financial product, right? So these are the two ways in which we are doing product innovation. One is on the bite-sized side, and second one is very custom propositions that cater to their lifestyle and their occupation, and so on and so forth.
Interesting. So, I mean, that's very insightful. I'm really glad to have had this conversation with you, Sri, and I wish Aegon Life the best, and I wish you my best as well.